I was almost going into my podcast shtick there. I'm sorry, but
Greetings, interwebs.
yeah, greeting, I guess. Yeah, and welcome to. It's funny. I just realized this because of how I'm numbering these. This is actually episode 50 of my old YouTube show because I occasionally bring it back as a live stream, but I
Yep.
digress. So it's kind of a momentous occasion.
And it was also the 50th year of Dungeons and Dragons.
That is
Celebrated at
true.
the
That
time.
is true, which is
So,
relevant to what we are talking about
yes.
tonight. My apologies in advance to everybody for for delaying this stream. Stuff happened. Life finds a way sometimes to muck everything up, but thank you for your patience. I'm going to start sharing this out because I know that there were some people interested in seeing this, and we don't technically have anybody in the chat right now. But hello, I am Nathan Marchand. That's your cue.
Hey, and I'm Eric Anderson.
And what do you do?
I do a lot of things. I'm a writer and a speaker. I have a little thing called Nerd Chapel that where I bridge the gap between the nerd community and the Christian community. And I love to host game nights and game days and participate in game nights and game days. And I work at a high school as a substitute teacher. And yeah.
I would make a joke about how this is you're just reading us your dating profile, but that no longer applies.
No, it does not. I have a
Sorry,
girlfriend.
everybody. He's taken now.
Yep.
Yeah, and I am if she doesn't show up in the chat, I'm going to be a little disappointed.
Well, I sent her the link, but I do not control her. So,
well, darn.
yes.
You mean one of your superpowers isn't mind control?
No, nope. But last I knew, she was hiking with her dad, but that may have been after the hike that she sent me those photos. So.
Oh, okay. You know, I'm like I said, I'm still trying to share this out a little bit here. Let me see. Okay, let me do a quote tweet here, a quote post. Is that what we're calling them now?
Is that?
Yeah, because it's not tweets anymore, because it's not Twitter, but everyone still calls it Twitter because, of course, they do. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, because it's not the 80s or the 70s, so X doesn't sound cool anymore.
I guess not. I'm just vamping at this point. So, yes, we are here to talk about the best 4 days in gaming. Yep. Gen Con, which was last weekend. It is basically, you know, you and I are, you know, we're both nerds, we're both gamers, but you started going to Gen Con as an attendee. I've been going to Gen Con almost every year since 2012, I want to say.
Yeah.
It was my first year as a vendor in their Authors Avenue. In fact, you were the one who alerted me to the existence of Authors Avenue in Gen Con because you had gone I think it was in 2010, I want to say.
Yep, because it was the same year I got back from my discipleship program in Slovakia and Jordan. So
right. So you had informed me it was actually at I haven't seen them in so long. I'm forgetting their names. It's the young couple. Well, I guess they're not so young anymore, but the couple, they have the like 2-3 kids and their house is out in the middle of nowhere. And we played airsoft out there.
Gilliam's.
The Gilliam's.
Yes.
Yes. It came back to me suddenly. And yeah, so you actually showed me the Gen Con program that year. It's like, you should look into this and go. And so I did. And, and I've been going every year since. And it's grown quite a bit. They set a record this year for attendance. This, I should mention, Gen Con is held in Indianapolis. So it's only a few hours,
and it's more than it's been going more than 50 years.
Yeah, it started in Lake Geneva.
Yep,
which is why it's called Gen Con. Yeah, but it's been in Indianapolis since about 2000, I think. It's early 2000s when it moved there.
Around that.
Yeah, but when I first went, it attracted about 40,000 in attendance. It's nearly double that now.
It is. It's gotten quite ginormous.
Yeah, yeah, it is now. I think they said 71,000 in attendance.
71,000 this year. Yep.
Yeah, I could have swore they hit 80,000 on the 50th anniversary year, but I guess I was wrong. Those
No, I never heard an actual number for the 50th anniversary year. I do know that last year it was 70,000, so there was 1,000 more this year than last year.
which is
Um,
bonkers.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
absolutely bonkers, but they have a section of the vendor hall that's called Authors Avenue. They also have one called Artist Alley. And
and they're
so
right next to each other.
and they're right next to each other usually. And so I've been going there and I've been selling books. It's the premier place for me to go vend books. And it was funny. I was telling Lamar, who's in charge of Authors Avenue now, how it's funny. The first time I went to Gen Con in 2012, I had one book and I brought 40 copies of it. And now I've
Yep.
got like a dozen that I'm trying to hawk while I'm there, including
You
our 3
hawker.
devotional books. Yes, I'm such a hawker. Including, like I said, our 3 devotional books. So, which, funny, we actually launched the first devotional book, 42 Discovering Faith Through Fandom, in 2015, I believe, at
Yes.
Gen Con.
Yep.
And we
Yeah.
could not keep copies on the shelf. It was ridiculous.
It was flying, and we donated 10 to the Christian Gamers Guild, who put it at their booth, and I was volunteering with them at the Christian Gamers Guild booth and helping you at your table. And in the middle of the second day, it's a 4-day show. In the middle of the second day, they ran out of copies at the Christian Gamers Guild booth. So I took my personal copy. I put a sign on it that said "Booth copy only. Go find Nathan Marchand's table in Artist Alley." And people had to go all the way across this. I think at that time it probably would have been about 6 football fields worth of space, and now it's up above 7, more like 7 or 8 football fields worth of space for the vending hall. Ginormous vending hall, bigger than Myers. Yeah, bigger than Myers or Walmart.
I was going to say, for those who don't know what Meyer is, it's a regional big box store. It's a competitor. It's a regional competitor with Walmart.
Yep. So, yeah, and people are going and finding your table, and they had an extra line to get into because of the shared checkout
Cashier.
lane. Yeah, shared cashier. So they they were coming all the way, finding you in the middle of this ginormous hall, getting a ticket for you, like a sheet paper from you, going and standing in line for who knows how long, paying for it, then bringing a slip back to us to show that they had paid for it. And yeah,
it was nutty, to say the least.
So.
But so we've got quite a history with Gen Con. Now, I've mostly been there as a vendor. I do try to go enjoy at least a couple of events in the evening. I used to slip away and go attend seminars for the Writers Symposium, but I realized I'm probably losing money if I do that, and it's expensive to vend at Gen Con, just saying. So I've basically stopped doing that, and I just strap myself to my table. But you've been going there in different capacities. We're doing all of the lore right now, okay? So forgive us our exposition dump. So you've been going there in several different capacities. You're not just there helping me with my table.
Right. So I started obviously as an attendee. My first time going was in 2010. And while there, I looked in the program book and somehow came upon the page with an ad for a church service. I'm like, oh, I don't have to miss church. And I went, and there was a nice service with a good attendance. And that's where I first met a guy named Dave, who had been doing ministry at Gen Con for years. And so later on in 2013, I started going yearly and regularly along with you. And so I spent a few years, about 3 years, volunteering for the Christian Gamers Guild at their booth, and playing games and doing maybe a tournament each time, either HeroScape or Smash Up. Uh, and then a few years ago, I got the message came out over the guild that Dave had been doing the ministries at Gen Con for 20 years, and he was ready to move on. So I said, "Hey, I'll put my name in the hat for that opportunity." And within a few minutes, it had been agreed that I was going to be the guy to oversee the events at Gen Con for the Christian Gamers Guild. So,
you're like, okay.
yeah, it was exciting. So, so I've stepped into that role, coordinating both the Christianity and Gaming panel and the Sunday morning worship service, the Christian worship service. And then a couple years ago, or last year, not a couple years ago, last year, I decided, well, I should look into like running games. And so our friends, Darren and Michelle Ball, got me connected with a fan group called Flight in the Sky Society, flying, not fight, flying.
I was
Flight
going
in
to
the Sky
say,
Society. And they run a variety of games at the con, and people sign up through the system and come to the games, and they're always looking for people, and you can earn your badge to the convention by running games. So I have this was my second year running games to earn my badge, and so instead of just going and playing games I haven't played before, I got to actually run games.
Yeah, I don't know how well this is showing up because this is a vertical picture, but that gives you an idea of how crowded it gets here.
That is right when the doors into the vendor hall opened. Like that is right at 10 o'clock, right when they opened. And so you're talking, probably 10,000 people waiting right outside there. Along the whole hallway and all the like 3 or 4 different entrances, 10,000 people waiting to get in.
Yeah, it's nuts. The vendor hall is a pretty big attraction.
Yes,
at this event,
and
because this is where companies will launch new products, or they'll reveal, or they will reveal products
more products
at Gen Con.
Yeah, they reveal more products get launched at Essen in Germany than at Gen Con, but there are some launched at Gen Con. Every year, around 3,000 plus board game products are created, and that's not even counting role-playing games, I don't think. So, but Gen Con is so big. We've got the vendor hall, you've got other gaming spaces and meeting rooms in other parts of the Indiana Convention Center, which is ginormous. You've got meeting rooms and events going on in the hotels connected to it, and open gaming spaces in one of them.
I was going to say, how many hotels, like the number of hotels hosting events for Gen Con has only increased since, I think it's up to what, 6 now?
I think it's 5.
5, okay.
But I don't know for sure. So 5 hotels are hosting events, and then like Darren and Michelle rented a room.
Yeah, our friends Darren and Michelle.
Yes, our friends rented a room for Wednesday before the con and had some maybe there. And there's what I was getting to. It's so big. We also use the Colts football field, Lucas Oil Stadium.
Yeah, Lucas Oil Stadium. So this is the one weekend where the nerds get to take over the football field.
Yep.
It just keeps getting bigger because they used to not use the football field, and now they do. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think the first one, maybe 2 times at the most they used it was before COVID, and then the first year after COVID, I don't think we used it. And then last year we started again in 2022. I think they came back to using it again. So it's
there was, trying to remember, say 2020 was online only, so it was basically canceled. 2021 it
was pushed into September.
Yeah, 2021 they did hold it, but they capped the attendance. But we had a really good year in sales that year, which was crazy. But it was only like half as many people. And then was it 20? What was the year I didn't go? It was 2022. I can't remember. I think it was 2022. I didn't go, but then I went last year and this year. Okay.
Yep.
So like 2022 was the one year I didn't go.
Yep.
Because I still technically participated in the 2020 online version. I did a couple of panels.
Yep. And all I did for that year, I think was just watch the other guy, Dave. You know, he was still doing the messages at that point, so he did a message online on Sunday morning, and I was home and like, sure. So I got on and watched his message instead of my own church that morning.
Oh, well,
Oh,
that was that's interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And okay, so I'm just looking at some of the we're going to be both of us hopefully I'm going to have to dig into my phone a little bit here. I'm just trying to see what else we've got in here that would be pertinent to what we're talking about because we both have some cosplay pictures that I
yep.
may show if we have a little bit of time. But I do have one more picture I want to show here that is not showing up. I don't know why. Okay, this is giving me grief.
Did you hit the wrong button again?
I don't know. Let me see. Click window. It's still not showing up. Okay.
Or see. Is there someone with techno powers in your building that's interrupting you from doing it?
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know why it's not cooperating right now, but anyway, I think I will just log off of all of these. Well, we'll do it live. I'm just going to log off of all of these socials because I think I've got the stream sent out and we may only have a few people with us tonight. I don't know. We'll find out.
We shall see.
Yeah, we
See, we
will
shall.
see. Yeah, yeah. Here, let me try this. I'll make it happy and still use Google, even though I don't like using Google anymore.
Well, we see Joyce Krause is on. Hi, Joyce.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if she's still on. Joyce, if you're still with us, leave a comment so I can share it because I think these are pre show comments that we've got here. But anyway, let me see because there's one more picture. Here we go. Here's another one that shows you how big it
Yep.
got. Oh, over
Yep.
there. This is in the football stadium again.
Yep. And that was on, I think, Thursday when I was running Wormspan. Or is that two? It's two setups and it was Friday morning. But if it's one Wormspan setup, then it was Thursday afternoon. I think that was Thursday afternoon.
Okay.
So.
And this is in the flight in the skies?
Flight in the Sky Society.
Yeah, the Flight in the Skies. What exactly is Flight in the Sky Society?
The name comes from an old game that was called something else before it was called that. But we run, and for a while they just ran that game. But then in Gen Con changed some things, and so in like 2002 or something, they started running. Because you have to realize this is the fan group that's been running games at Gen Con the longest. It was started the second year of Gen Con. And
Wow.
for like a couple of decades, they just ran that one game. And then couple of decades ago, they opened it up for a variety of games. And so I ran Wormspan, which is basically a game where you're building up a dragon sanctuary. So if you've played Wingspan, it's like that, but with dragons.
Yeah, when the original version had birds.
Yes. And I taught several rounds of Unmatched. I ran a few Star Wars games, which you helped me with because there was this one weird situation when they had scheduled me for two different games at once accidentally, and I was trying to
a
be prepared for anything.
snafu. Yeah, scheduling snafu. So I got to be an impromptu game master
for Star Wars Epic Duels.
Yeah, which I know inside and out. Although I did have to clarify with some of the more disputable rules that I know we kind of fudged around it because we used to play that every week in college with our friends. And I know there were some rules we kind of fudged around a little bit and made house versions that I wanted to make sure I was playing it correctly.
So we ran that, and then I ran Commissioned on Saturday evening, which is a game where you're the apostles building up the church around the Mediterranean. So
right. Which we'll get into more details with that here in a moment. But that's what you do now. You volunteer. You basically volunteer. You run events, and that allows you to get into the convention for free, which is a cool thing. I wish more conventions would do. I know Ramen Con up in the South Bend, Mishawaka area does that,
Well, and
where if you run 4 panels, you get in for free.
yeah, like Grand Rapids Comic Con will pay you for doing panels. So it's not a crazy amount of money, but normally I get enough from the couple of panels I do there to reimburse me for my ticket.
Right.
And some if you do panels, and there's always volunteering spots at cons just for like helping people find where things are and stuff like that. But normally there's not as many of them as with something like Gen Con, because Gen Con there's vendors in the hall that are looking for people to work for them, and you work a bunch of hours and they'll get you your badge, and oftentimes they'll get you a hotel spot as well that may or may not be downtown, that you never quite know, but they do oftentimes hook you up with hotel spots.
Yeah, I want to show you that. I want to show people this. This is a picture of you, me, and my brother Jared at at basically the front entrance.
Yeah,
Gen
kind
Con.
of. Yeah, it's more like a side entrance, but it's still like there's so many entrances. There's no really one front entrance.
Yeah, well, this one was the one that was the fanciest, because I think this is where most people are coming in. So they've got this big old banner advertising. Is it a Shonen Jump game, or is it Shonen Jump? Yeah, I think it's a Shonen Jump game, because those
Union
are from
Arena.
different. Yeah, those are different characters from different franchises. I just thought it was a cool thing to share there really quick. So, okay, so the way I've got this set up, we're going to go day by day talking about this. So I kind of jumped ahead showing that, because that was technically from day one. But we're going to start with, and this is for all of our, I should say, fellow Godzilla fans here, I'm calling it day -1.
I think you get to say day 0.
Oh, wrong button. I was going for the rim shot, not the sad trombone. But yes,
get your button straight.
Yeah. We have sound effects, but I'm bringing this up because you had to come early. I normally try to get there on Wednesday, which is the day before. That unfortunately did not work out this year. Well, it did and it didn't. But you were actually there on Tuesday.
Yes.
So I'm going to let you start here.
Tuesday I arrived. My brother is a big coffee fan, and I needed a ride, so he took me down. I paid for the gas, and he went and visited a couple of coffee houses that he had heard about and not visited before. Well, one of them he had visited before. But
which brother is this?
Darren.
Okay.
So Nate and I stayed at a house that's owned by a church, and they use it as a missions and hospitality house. So we had the house to stay at for the week, which was much more affordable. And it was
good Lord. It's like a really nice but inexpensive Airbnb.
Yes. And it's only like 10 minutes away driving from the con. So it's really quite good. And so I got checked in there, and had kind of some time for myself, and had brought down a can of something to have for dinner, and had my dinner there. And then I took the bus downtown and met up with our friend Darren Ball that we've mentioned.
Not to be confused with brother Darren.
Yes. And so met up with him at the hotel he was staying at, and some other people came, and we played a couple games. So I played a couple of games I had played before. One of them being Camel Up. And then I also played a game called Cascadia Tuesday night that I had not played before, which was pretty fun. It's a nature theme, and so you're building up a natural area and getting animals out, and the animals score points in different ways. So the way that a fox scores points is that it has to have other animals around it that are not foxes, and not in unique animals. So 2 bear would only count as 1 point. If you have 1 bear and 1 squirrel and 1 hawk, then that'd be 3 points. Bears, if you have 2 of them right next to each other, but no other bears around them, then that's how they get points. So they all do that differently.
Yeah.
And that was fun.
That was Tuesday night or Wednesday?
That was Tuesday night.
Tuesday night. Okay.
I took the bus back to the house and got some sleep. and went back to that hotel the next morning, took the bus down again, and hung out all day at playing games. Got to play Far Shore, which is a spin-off of a game called Everdell. It's another kind of uh, nature thing, but more of a anthropomorphized nature thing. So the animals are building up their city, and you're building up a city with animals in it. And then I hosted Ezra Nehemiah. It's one of the big new games that people are excited about by Garphill Games. And you're basically building up the walls and the I went to say palace, which is not correct. The temple, the walls in the temple in Jerusalem after uh, the separation, the exile, after the
Mhm.
exile. And so it was fun to teach that to some people and play it myself. Great game. I enjoy it. I kickstarted it, and I'm so glad I did.
Mhm.
Uh, um, and then I had a meeting that evening with the group that I run games with, and then I
Mhm.
found you.
I was gonna say the Jared and I normally leave after lunch on Wednesday because it only takes us a little over 2 hours to get to the convention center. But things just did not work out. There was a bunch of stuff that needed taken care of beforehand. So we ended up not getting there until right when the back entrance to the vendor hall closed. So they would not let us in there to go set up the night before. So it was a little annoying. So for the first time since I've started going to Gen Con as a vendor, I had to set up the morning of, which I was a little bit
Yeah.
scared about. But we'll get into that. So I got there and couldn't go set up. So we had all of this extra stuff in the car, but we had to pick you up and go back to the house. So we were trying to figure out how to manage that. So it ended up being I went to the house, dropped off Jared and some of his stuff, went back, got you, and then we went back. So I'm
Yep.
shuttling everybody. So I'm taxiing, I guess is a better way to put it, back and forth. But, we did that and then we took the time to unload everything and, get ourselves situated. We ended up claiming the same rooms we had last year, which was
Yeah.
kind of funny.
Hey, it works.
Yeah, but it's an old-timey house too. It's gotta be, I don't know how
Yeah.
old it is, but it's definitely set up where this would have been a family living in this thing because there was a master bedroom or what felt like a master bedroom, and then several smaller ones that were probably gonna, would have been occupied by kids, things like that. But it's a wonderful. I should have done a video tour. I forgot to do a video tour of this thing, and
Mm.
which it's a cool little house, and there's a I don't know what it is, like a nursery. I'm not sure, but there's like a kids facility there and a playground that's right in
Right.
front of it.
Yep. So they have um, a daycare.
Daycare, that's what it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, so we would often see kids playing with some adults and everything as we really only used the house to sleep in, you know?
yep.
Yeah.
I'm looking for. See, is it here? Do we do? Oh, I used to have. I thought I had a picture of the house, but I
Mhm.
must not have it anymore.
Yeah, I had did a video tour of it last year, but yeah, I can't really do that. I can't really do that here necessarily. So, we got ourselves situated. I will confess that what was really fun is that all of our devices remembered the Wi-Fi password. We didn't change the Wi-Fi password, so all of our devices just logged right into the Wi-Fi. And I will admit, I did take that opportunity to do a little bit of the podcast, not necessarily, like uploading of a podcast just to get some stuff on the feed and things like that because I'm a little behind on my podcast production. So that was what I spent most of the evening doing, which now,
And we're all
hey,
going to harass you for being behind on your podcast. You should be on. No, no.
I was gonna say I will kick you off Patreon. Even I don't need your money that bad. Anyway, so now let's get to day one proper. So we got ourselves up bright and early. We
Yep.
and so we got some breakfast and such into us. I always caffeinate myself to get through the day because I know I've been to enough cons to know, I don't know why, but I usually end up not getting as much sleep as I normally do. So, and I'm basically, this is a working vacation, so I get myself caffeinated. And we left super early. They no longer let people in an hour early on Thursday, which is kind of nice, but also a little surprising.
Well, the problem is that there were only so many people, and those few amount of people that paid a lot of money for the VIG, very important gamer badges, were going in and they're buying up a bunch of stuff. And, you know, some of those people were happy to put those things up on eBay. Or maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think there was some of that.
That
So
sounds like
don't
something
quote
that
me on that.
they
I don't know if I'm completely accurate.
yeah, that does sound like something that they would do.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing though, I'll tell you this. I don't think I ever made a book sale during that time. I don't know if
Yeah.
any of the authors who
Basically, there
did.
was such a small group of people, it really wasn't beneficial to the vendors.
Yeah.
And with the vendors already being there for 8 hours a day, to have an extra hour to have 9 hours a day of vending, it
On
takes
the
a lot out
first
of you.
day, yeah, yeah.
It takes a lot out of you. So
Yeah, but
it
and
just
so
wasn't worth it.
right, and it did give us a little extra time to set up, but we always dread Thursday because the last couple of years, especially noticed it last year because last year was the first time that we stayed at the house. And it was a nightmare dealing with traffic on day one. Absolute nightmare. Because we could not get anywhere. It was like everybody decided to show up at the con on Thursday morning. Plus, you had all the normal traffic of people going to work
Yep.
or whatever.
Yep.
But to our amazement, and I don't know if this was providential because we went into this, things were not going well to get there and get set up. Not all of the books I ordered to sell there arrived in time, so some of them were sitting in my mailbox during the con, which was a little disappointing. So I was already feeling discouraged going in, and I don't know if this was an answer to prayer or what, but we did have we prayed a little bit about the weekend the night before, and we got there, super fast.
Yep.
The
No
normal it was
traffic.
the normal there was no traffic, it was the normal time, and, we found our favorite parking garage that's a little less of a favorite now because
Hmm.
they didn't it's still probably cheaper than everywhere
Yeah.
else, but they
Yep.
didn't but they did lower their prices by half like they did last year, but it never seemed to be when we were there.
Right.
We still had to pay full
I think
price,
it
which
was
was
later in the
weird.
day, so you weren't paying full price if you were only there for half the day or something like that.
I guess it was really bizarre, but we still love that parking garage because it's convenient. It's still convenient. It's inexpensive, and
Yep.
it's just down the street from where Darren and Michelle would stay because they stay in the same hotel every year.
And we joined them for games.
Yeah, we did, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. So that's we loaded up my funny little wagon thing with all of my table stuff and my book supply, and that's when we had the picture that I showed everybody where we walked in, we saw the main entrance, and
And I had my rolling box with our devotional books. But yeah.
Yes, and give me a second here, and I posted this. That's not a good picture. I posted this on social media. And so I'll share it here for everybody. This is me at my table. So this was the table that we were using the whole weekend.
Yep.
So got the banner, which it's funny. It's funny. I'm going to reveal my secrets, but the banner I have back there, I love it. But the printer sent it to me. He's a friend of mine. Sent it to me, but I never opened it because I didn't have a need to use it because it got made a year I didn't get to go, and I didn't realize that there was a typo on it. It has an apostrophe that shouldn't be there. So this year I decided to experiment. I basically made because it's got a space background. So I found a planet and made a magnet out of it and put it on there to hide the apostrophe, and it still just looks like it's part of the banner. that actually got me some attention because people thought it was part of a scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
Because
At
they,
least three. At
they
least
thought it was a
three.
because it's like half bright orange and half bright blue, and they would look at it's like, is that a blood moon for the scavenger hunt? It's like, no, it's supposed to be a planet, but let me tell you about my books. It's,
Yeah.
it's just funny how that worked out. So it got some attention, but
Yep.
yeah. So I will admit, I think I need to start. A lot of the other authors will bring their own covers for the tables. I might have to start doing that. I'm also probably going to have to start getting more shelving because I'm running out of space. Yeah, and by next year, I'm going to have so many titles being sold that I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit everything on there. And we've already got the TARDIS cookie jar, to do the candy gimmick and just like yeah, the other things that got a lot of attention is like the TARDIS got attention. My brother, you can't see it very well on here. Maybe there's let me see if I can find a picture of him. But my brother has yeah, here's a good picture. It's him. It's a close-up picture. But my brother has a generic Beanie Baby. It's like 20 years old. We originally belonged to our grandmother. And I don't know what this thing's real name is supposed to be because I don't know if we still have the tag or whatever for this. But in the family, we call him Binty Kong. So he got attention because he would sit there and my brother would tape him to his hat and wear that. So I always knew how to find Jared because he's the one guy with a monkey on his head.
Yep.
Yep. And so that got a lot of attention. And I had a couple of other props with me that also got a lot of attention, and people wanted to buy those instead of the books. Oh, wait. Nope. That's just that's the guy who bought the first book. Let me see. I'm trying to. Where is it? I wish I could cycle through this a little more easily. Or did I know I took a picture of it. Did I take a picture of it on day 2? Might have been a day 2 thing. Let me see here. Yeah, here it is. But I had 2 other props besides the TARDIS to get people to come over. One of the other ones, and people wanted to buy this thing. This was not the most popular one to try to buy. The TARDIS got an offer, and he got an offer. I have this Playmates Godzilla figure that has a mouth that can be opened. So I stuck a business card in there, so he's holding it like a bulldog. That got a lot of attention. Someone did try to offer to buy him off me, and I said no. But the one that got the most attention, to my surprise, and this is not the first year I've had it, but it got a lot of attention this year for some odd reason. And that is this little thing that was holding my pen that I would use to sign the books.
Yep, your knight.
The knight, which I think you actually alerted me to on Facebook, and I said, I need to get this thing. And then my sister bought it for me for Christmas later that year. And I was just delighted to see that. So people were like, oh my gosh, can I buy that off of you? It's like, no, it's a gift from my sister. I will fight you.
Yep.
And then you might be wondering, like, what the heck is Mini Jesus? Well, that is currently sitting on my desk, a shelf on my desk. One time my sister came to visit, and she works with kids. She's basically the youth pastor,
Children's pastor
at this little church that she goes to, and she has these little mini Jesus figures. I bumped my mic. These little mini Jesus figures, and she came over one time, and she likes to just hide them in different places, see if people notice them. So she put one on the little platform for the night. So I just said, okay, they're a package deal now. Where the night goes, mini Jesus goes. Oh, I'm echoing. Anyway, so a lot of those were getting attention. Now, you were not at my table all that much on the first day because you were busy, sir.
Yes. Yeah, so in the morning, I demoed a couple of games.
Who's this guy?
Some weird guy. Yeah. Yeah,
I don't.
good
Yeah, I
guy.
would.
Good channel. They used to definitely follow his channel.
Yeah,
Um,
probably, but yeah.
uh, so I went into the room for DeVere Games. They had a room across from the vendor hall, and I was just waiting around. So I went in and I demoed a couple games. First, I demoed Rock Hard 1977, where you are a wannabe rock and roll artist in the 70s trying to build up your music career. So you have a normal day job because you don't make much money doing music yet. You only have a couple of songs you've written, so you need to write songs. You have to network and connect with people and get notoriety in the music industry. And so it's interesting because it has phases where you've got the day phase, the evening phase, which is performances, and then the late night phase, which is social things.
Hmm.
Um, and so your job might require you to work during the evening phase, or it might require you to work during the day, and so all these little aspects. Uh, it was pretty fun. I'm not sure I want to own it. There are some things that I'm like, I don't know if I want to own a game that includes it. Like there was some candy that if you get too much of the candy, you might end up having to go into rehab. It, it's about the 1970s rock and roll scene. So,
Yeah, and there are groupies.
yeah, there's groupies. Now, there are also, like I said, you might have to go to rehab. So there are some consequences for some of these things. Uh, but I'm still not quite sure if I want to own the game
Yeah,
or not.
it's definitely trying to present the rock and roll lifestyle.
Yes, it is. Uh, and then I played a game called Cities, and I really liked this game. I did not end up buying it. I'm going to get it at some point. Really fun game. You're just building up your own city, and there are different cards, uh, different goals you can reach to gain points, and it was really fun, quick, fun. I enjoyed it a lot. So then I think I did a short demo for one other game. It was a flickum game where it was themed around dinosaurs playing basketball, and you're having to flick your dinosaur to get him into position, and then
Pew,
flick the ball into the thing.
pew.
So that was kind of fun. It's definitely more of a kids game, but for people who like dexterity games, it would be great. So I played those, and then I went over. I did sit a short time at your table, but not very much because I was going over to run games. And so I ran Worms Fan, the dragon game, for a couple of rounds. I ran a bunch of rounds of Unmatched. Uh, at my break from running games, I ran outside to check the food trucks, and I had to be quick because there was lightning in the distance and they were closing down. So I had to.
I know that was so.
So
I am not used to inclement weather at Gen Con because they
it
do a block
happens.
party. They do a block
Yeah.
party here, and they moved it to another location because you knew usually that area where I showed the picture of the quote unquote main
Yep.
entrance. That's normally where they would have it, but it got so big they had to move it.
Well, it got
And
big, and there's construction right next to it, which took up a bit
right,
of space,
right,
and
right.
so.
So they actually we have the famous Gen Con announcer guy, who's
Mhm.
may or may not be disembodied. And I hear him so much because I spend most of my time at the vendor hall. I could probably I do a pretty good impersonation of him. I just need to throw some echo effects on here. He's like, attention Gen Con attendees. Like he does the same thing every year. There's a girl who does it now too, which is kind of weird. But because now you get two voices. But anyway, he came on and announced that the block party was ending early on the first day because of quote unquote inclement weather. He said, "Send your complaints to Zeus's inbox."
Yes. Yes. Well, and some people came to sit with me, and they had seen, like, how some of the food trucks have these doors that swing up just for the window. The wind knocked one of those down on somebody.
Oh no.
And so you had wind, you had lightning. So yeah, there was reason. And so I got some chicken and fries and found a seat in Lucas Oil and
Mhm.
hang out with some random people and spent some time talking with them, which was really good. And then went back and ran more rounds of Unmatched. So yeah, it
Mhm.
was good. I got to play a couple of the games of Unmasked, and that's always fun. It's my favorite game. So
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, so I spent basically the whole day in the vendor hall. I had a shockingly good Thursday. I normally make maybe a few sales,
mhm,
on Thursday, because Thursday, it's the first day. People haven't seen the entire vendor hall yet.
right.
Most of the time, they have not made their buying decisions yet, but I sold one book inside of a half an hour. And then I sold like over a dozen, I think, by the time it was done, which was crazy. I was like, why are these flying off? And I would, since I had books ordered, but they hadn't arrived yet, I had display copies for all of them. And if people were interested in buying one, I said, okay, here's the caveat. You're going to have to pre-order it from me, but as soon as I get back home after the convention, I will sign and mail you a copy. And to my amazement, people actually took me up on that
Yep.
offer.
Yep.
And so even when I quote unquote, didn't have copies or I sold out, they could still get one. So I did spend a little bit of time Monday and Tuesday after the con, signing and mailing books. I still have one more order I need to do because I had to order some more books to
Mm.
account for that order. So if you're hearing this or watching this, it's coming anyway. So we finished in the vendor hall after an exceptionally good day. I was right next actually to Brain Lag Publishing, which is kind of interesting. She's someone, I know the person who runs it, and she's a great person, and it was great to talk to. I like it when I have good booth neighbors. I was actually at the end of a line, so I only really had one booth neighbor, and
Yep.
it was her. And she was a very good booth neighbor. I would love
Yes.
to be next to her
Yep.
again if I could. But anyway, so we finished there. Jared and I did go to a couple of free events that
Mm.
evening. We went to a seminar that was more like a live podcast recording, and it was called The Science of Science Fiction. It wasn't quite as informative as I thought it would be. It was a little more entertainment based, which was these 3 or 4 panelists that are both nerds and scientists, and they went over different aspects of science in Fallout, which was actually that's the part that was informative. It was kind of interesting, but at the same time, I'm just like, okay, this wasn't exactly what I thought it would be, but it was
Right.
much more entertaining than I expected. And then because you were still running some stuff and I wanted to kill a little bit of
Yep.
time and I knew I could get into it because it was free. It was weird this year when it came to handling the free events because apparently you didn't necessarily have to have tickets. You could just show up if you wanted to, which was kind of goofy.
Well, yeah, for seminars and events like that, you've always been able to show up.
Okay. Well, anyway, so
But
we went.
tickets are used to help the convention know people want it.
Right, right. So we went over next door to what is it? Czech Republic Games? Is that what it's called?
Czech Games Edition.
Czech Games Edition. That's what it was. And I played what is it? Oh, what is it called again? Starship Captains? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
I,
which is a game I need to get because it's basically Star Trek in all but name, and I
yep.
kind of love it.
Yeah.
So, it's a competitive kind of personnel management game because it's not
Yep.
a true combat game. There's combat elements in it, but it's not a straight up combat game. But you're moving around on a board and doing missions. You got to manage your crew to get them to do certain things, and and all of that. And I loved it. I thought I was going to win this session, but I ended up coming just a little bit short, which was a little disappointing. And then after we did that. We hung up for a little bit, and I could actually, if I wanted, I could probably find the picture of of that game. I did take a picture. Let me see.
Picture.
I think after that we had to go meet you at Lucas Oil, and we passed through the hall of pinball machines.
Yes. The many pinball machines.
The many pinball machines. Yeah, that was here it is. I found a picture of the game. So here I'll show it really quick. But yeah, the Hall of Pinball Machines was wild,
Mm-hmm.
which I'll show that here in a moment too. So yes, this is Starship Captains.
Yep. I
So
demoed it with you a year or two or some point.
Yeah. Yeah. So give me a second here, and I will find at least one picture of the Hall of Pinball Machines, because there's this connecting hallway
Hmm.
for the Indiana Convention Center and Lucas Oil Stadium. Yeah, okay. Here's the first one. This by no means shows you how many there is. And it's not even the best view of the machines, but this is what it looked like. And I wanted to play them, but I just never had the time to do it. But it was kind of interesting to see them because they had a gazillion different machines.
They did.
The craziest one, because it had it made the most noise, and it had extra lights and everything on it, so it always drew attention to itself. But there was an Elton John machine.
Yeah.
And
There's
you
an Elton
always
John.
knew when someone was doing well at that machine, because it made the loudest noise and had the craziest lights that were going off.
There was a Godzilla pinball machine.
Godzilla pinball. There was a Deadpool machine.
LTR.
Yeah. Lord of the Rings. There was so much. Let me see. Do I have another one? I think I did take a couple of them. This is another one that gives you a better idea. Yeah, this is a different angle that gives you an idea. And I don't even think this even shows all of the machines, because this stretched on for quite a while. But let me show you here. So this is what that looked like. This gives you a better idea. And that's not even all of them.
Yeah, I think there was probably about 40 of them. 40 or 50 of them.
Yeah, there were a lot. So we moseyed down there, waited for you to finish your stuff, and then we went back to the house, and that was the end of day 1. So let's move on to day 2. This was another busy one for you. I'm staying in the hall. Jared at different points during the day would slip away and go to he did a lot of the free seminars. He went to a lot of interesting ones that I kind of wish I could have gone to, but regardless, so he's going over. A lot of them were writer symposium events too. But so this was a particularly busy day for you. So I'm selling books, and I have another really good day in the vendor hall. Fridays usually are a little bit better in the vendor hall in Authors Avenue, because people have already been able to look around, and they've deciding to make some of their first purchasing decisions. But it's usually, it'll be a little bit better than Thursday, but not that much better. This one was about as good, if not, maybe it was either slightly better or about as good as the day before, which was already great. It was exceptionally great. So I did quite well in the vendor hall. Although I will admit, I don't think I sold any of our devotional books. I think, I can't remember if it was late in the day, Friday, that I finally
there was at
sold some
least one
devos.
devotional sale.
Yeah.
I think somebody got all 3 later.
I think, but then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday they were settling like crazy. But, but anyway, so my day basically the same as the day before. You, on the other hand,
yes. So I'd been contacted by the people who organized the group I run games for. Someone else who was also running Wormspan was not able to make it to the con. They had some life issues come up and just couldn't be there. So I took their 8 o'clock Wormspan, the dragon game.
Yeah, but so we had to get there earlier than normal.
Yes, because I had to be there at like 7:30 to get set up. Because I had to set up 2 Wormspan sets right next to each other. And so I ran that. And it was good. 8 out of the 10 spots, 8 were full. So that's not too bad. People seemed to really enjoy it. It was fun. And I went over and met back up with you in the vendor hall for a little while. Although I did stop to get some food because I was hungry and had not had much of a breakfast. So I stopped and got some chicken and waffles and a Sprite. And then walked into be at your table. And then I left. I had my afternoon event, the Christianity and Gaming panel. And our friend Scott Klaus, who is a missionary in Papua New Guinea and currently works as a teacher at the school for missionary kids, is he and his wife and family are back in the U.S. for a little bit, and they were at Gen Con, so he was part of the panel. I also had Bubba Stallcup from Love Thy Nerd on it, and a guy that I connected with about a year ago who found Nerd Chapel online, uh, named Jonathan, who used to be very involved in LARPing. And when I say very involved, he was connecting part of a nationwide network of LARPers, and he was the lead storyteller for like 3,000 people who are LARPing all around the nation.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I think it was more than 3,000 people, but the biggest event he ever ran the storytelling for had 3,000 people, each with multiple characters. And so you're talking like 15,000 stories that he's intersecting at this one event.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a great group. We had the right group for this year. I think God pulled it together, and people asked questions. There was one or two questions that Scott was the best person to answer. There were one or two questions that Jonathan was the best person to answer. There was one or two questions that Bubba was the best person to answer.
Mm-hmm.
And they all had questions where they were all, of course, questions where they were all able to give very good, useful input with.
Yeah.
And so it was great. Great discussion. People, it's very much a Q&A, and we encourage people to come in and bring their own questions. And they're able to help people with things they were honestly struggling with as a Christian in the gaming realm. And how do I host a game day, or how do I deal with this or that? And provided some good feedback for people.
Right. I had been invited to be on that panel some years ago. I can't remember what year it was. And so I know what that panel's like. It's always one that I wish I could go to, but I gotta stay in the hall and keep making money. So what'd you do after that?
After that, I slowly made my way over to your panel. I almost went out to eat with some people.
To
your table. Almost went out to eat with some friends, but this is Gen Con. Hotels are full of people, or restaurants are full of people. Both hotels and restaurants are full of people. And I wasn't sure I could trust a restaurant to be done in time before I had to get over to run my evening games. So I went to hang out with you. And we had one or more people come across the table. And then I went to the field to run my Star Wars games. And I was dressed in my Star Wars costume, and I didn't get a picture of myself in my Star Wars costume this year, my Jedi costume.
Yeah, I will be honest. I was looking at my folder of photographs, and I didn't take as many pictures this year as I normally do. It's a little surprising.
It is. But I ran Star Wars Epic Duels, and then I had a round of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, which is a great game. If you've played Pandemic, they take the Pandemic system and make a Star Wars game with it.
Right. And it was that when I had to come in and help.
Then you came in because they
had
me running.
I was going to say that was after everything in the hall, so we had already done.
Yep.
And basically because we had hinted at it before, because of a scheduling snafu, they put two of your games at the same time.
Yep.
And you didn't want to necessarily split your brain like that.
Yeah. So you took care of the one game, and the leader of our group had messaged people to let them know, hey, this was supposed to be at 9:00, and ended up nobody else showed up for the other game. So that was a little bit frustrating. You always hate to have a game when nobody shows up.
Yeah, it was incredibly silly, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see. No, that was a different game that I just observed somebody playing. I'm trying to find a picture, because I did take a picture. So this is basically my first time, quote unquote, officially GMing at Gen Con. I did go buy a ticket to make sure I was doing this officially.
Oh. Yeah, the oddness of Gen Con things. I had.
Okay, I found it. Yeah, this is a picture of most of the group.
Yeah. If you had not had a ticket, you would have been able to GM, but you couldn't have played in the game. And with it being a team versus team kind of game, it was nice for you to be able to play.
Yeah, because we ended up having an odd number of people who came, because there's one person who's not in the picture because she didn't want to be in the picture. But so we had 5 people there, so I joined so that I could, so we'd have an even 3-on-3.
Yep.
And the game was crazy.
It was
Absolutely
epic. It was
crazy.
epic.
I really thought the light side was just going to trounce people, but then because it was this game of attrition, kept going
Yep.
back and forth this entire time, and it came down to me because I was playing Obi-Wan, who's OP in this game. Good Lord, is he
Yep.
OP? And who was it? Was it the Emperor? I think it was the Emperor.
Yeah, the Emperor was in the game. Yep.
Yeah. And it came down to me and him, and down to the wire because I almost had him. But yeah, it was pretty gnarly because I really thought that the light side was pretty stacked. Although they had Vader and the Emperor, which was pretty nuts. But like that, but what was the funniest part is that the girl who was there, she was someone's girlfriend. She was running Greedo and Boba got killed really fast because she had never played the game before. So Boba got killed really fast. So she wanted to just quit the game, but then she ran around with Greedo and actually accomplished a couple of things and actually might have tipped the scale in their favor.
Yeah,
it was so funny because she just wanted to quit. It's like, I don't want to play anymore. It's like, no, you can still do things with Greedo. And then she did a lot with Greedo, which was nutty. So that was kind of fun. Also, I would like to point out, yes, I am wearing a different hat every day because that's just kind of my convention thing. So it was my 4th Doctor / Indiana Jones hat day 1 this year, and then day 2 I wore my beret. So yeah.
Okey-dokey.
So once we finished that, I think that's when we went back to the house.
Yeah, pretty soon after that, we went back to the house.
Yeah.
I don't think we connected with Darren that night. Darren Ball.
No.
I think we just
No,
went
I
back to the
actually
house.
I saw him and Michelle, I think once on either Thursday or Friday in the vendor hall,
Mhm.
but then I didn't see him again until Sunday.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the big day.
Saturday.
Day
Day 3.
3. Day 3. This is the big day when you've got the vast majority of the attendees are showing because a lot of people only come on Saturday, or they come on Saturday and Sunday. So there's a gazillion people in this one. I once again had a really good day in the vendor hall that was like every day was consistently good. And I would always,
great.
sometimes I would get a little bit worried because it would seem like things were not going all that great, that I'm not moving as many books as I would like early on. But then things pick up in the afternoon. It goes crazy because people are coming back, or, they've looked around and they're making their purchasing decisions and whatnot. So it was another great day in the vendor hall. Let me see if I can find, because I know we both took pictures of him, but I think it was Saturday when he came in with what I honestly would say, yeah, here's the picture that you got with him. I'll show this one. But this, honestly, I think we can agree this was our favorite cosplay of the entire weekend. And this guy he said that he actually won the cosplay contest, I think last year, with this costume. And this is nothing short of amazing. Right here. It's probably not the best picture.
Ron Brees. I follow him on Instagram. So I'd seen him at another con. But yeah, he
the animated series version of Mr. Freeze.
Yes.
And everything here is homemade.
Yep. And I've seen him do his Lex Luthor, and he's very good with Lex Luthor as well.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, but he made this thing practical. Like there are built-in fans to actually make this pleasant to wear.
Yep.
Like, so he didn't just make it look cool, he made it practical. This guy, I think if I remember correctly, I think he's an engineer.
Well, he works with helping people with like cable issues and television.
Right, yeah. So he actually has knowledge, thanks to his job, that allows him to make this amazing costume. And then he did the makeup and wears the glasses. Like, it was impressive. This is absolutely incredible. He had a voice changer on the suit.
Yep.
So when he would have the dome on, so he would actually it would give him that kind
Well,
of
it's just a microphone. It wasn't even a voice
robotic.
changer.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
give him that robotic droning sort of voice tone that the character had in that show.
And this was the debut of my full-on Stargate SG-1 costume.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, which actually got you a little bit of attention.
a little bit. Yeah, there are a couple
Yeah.
of guys because I went at some point. I went out to grab a burger and shake at Steak and Shake, and a couple of guys were pretty excited to see it.
Yeah.
So, and I did have one person who got a photo of me with it
Mm,
in my cosplay. So,
yeah. Yeah. All right. So, like I said, nothing all that crazy necessarily happened in the vendor hall. That was weirdly enough, you would think that this wouldn't necessarily be the case. I think Saturday was the first day you really got to spend a lot of time with me at
yes.
the table.
Yep, I spent a lot of time with you before the vendor hall opened. I did spend some time in the cosplay area where cosplayers go and people can get pictures of them. Um, and just hung out to be there and present. And it
Mhm.
also gave me a way to be away from the tons of crowds.
Right.
And then after I spent some time in there, I went upstairs and watched the crowds run in. And then after all the crazy crowds had gone in, then I went into the vendor hall.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you did not have a badge that gave you early
Right.
entrance privilege.
Yeah.
I had that. Thankfully, they don't. It's the same price regardless. You just
Right.
get some extra privileges to be able to go in there. Yeah, which was
And
another snafu we had to deal with actually on Wednesday night. I
yep.
discovered that I had not done the work to get Jared a badge, so we had to take care of that. We were afraid that we weren't going to be able to get him one because they were sold out, but they still let him get a vendor hall badge, which
Which is
actually
crazy.
was good anyway. Because I think,
Yeah.
and I think this is how we're just going to do things going forward. That way, he can always be able to come in with me and
Yep.
get things set up,
Yep.
and we don't have to worry about managing when he can and can't go in there.
Yep.
So that might just be what we do going forward. And he technically contributed some stuff that was in the vendor hall anyway. Our friend Mary Fan, he's done some illustrations for her
Hmm.
for her sci-fi anthologies. So it's he can technically be in there. So
Yep.
as far as I care. So I know we'll have probably the most interesting. Was it Sunday when we had the really interesting interaction? I think it was Sunday.
It was one of the days. Yeah.
It was,
I know on Saturday I played a game called MLEM, which is basically cats exploring space.
well, yeah, no, I'm
It's
talking about in the vendor hall.
I know,
Yeah.
but
Which we'll save that for the last day. But Saturday night, the I bought, this is kind of annoying. I bought event tickets, $2 event tickets to play Unmatched Adventures Tales to Amaze with a
great
group.
game.
Yeah, with a group in over at the football stadium. And Jared and I were the only ones who showed up.
Yeah, and I don't like. I know there were some. The publishing company was doing some unmatched tournaments, and maybe that's part of the reason why nobody showed up for it. They did not have much luck with hosting games of that. People were not showing up for it, and I don't know why.
Which it's tragic
It
because
is
it's a really good and Unmatched Adventures is the co-op for
co-op version of
edition of the
unmatched
game.
that I ran as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to pick that one up. I did buy a new Unmatched set because I wanted to buy at least one game while I was there. I did not get that one, but it was very tempting. I think by the time I decided to go buy it, I think it might have actually sold out. So, I was just happy to see how popular Unmatched was
Yes.
there because they were
Yep.
selling stuff like crazy. Like I think half the titles that they had available, if not more, maybe even as many as 2/3 had already sold out. So, I still need to pick that one up. I'm trying to check mark all of the Unmatched sets at this point because like you, it is one of my new tabletop obsessions. Although one of my other ones, it was officially relaunched at Gen Con this year, Heroescape. Heroescape
Yeah.
came back.
So, Renegade Games, last year, they got the rights to Heroescape from Hasbro. Hasbro had tried to restart it on their own with a crowdfunding campaign, and it was very expensive, and it just flopped. It royally flopped, did not go over. And they wanted to get way too many purchases in that campaign. It was yeah. So it flopped, but then Renegade approached them and got the rights, and so now they are putting out brand new Heroescape material. So it's exciting for all the Heroescape fans because we've been waiting a while.
Yeah.
And again, our friend we keep mentioning, Darren Ball, who is not with us on this in this live.
He won the last tournament, the last official tournament.
No, it wasn't the last one, but he did win an official tournament.
Yeah.
And so they had it for a couple of years after that. But yeah, so he's a big Heroescape champion and very much part of the Heroescape community. But he bought some stuff. I have another friend in one of my gaming clubs around here who bought some stuff up. So I'll at some point I will get to play the new Heroescape stuff.
Yeah,
I just don't know when.
I need to break down and buy it. I thought about it. I don't know if it's possible to get the premium painted set unless it's pre-order.
I don't know for sure. I think you can, but it is very expensive compared to
It's gotten expensive. It's so wild to think that those original Heroescape sets you could buy at Walmart because it was sold as a children's toy.
Yeah.
You could buy it for like $40, and now it's like if you get the unpainted version, it's $120.
Yeah, it's expensive.
That just shows you how stupid these things have gotten.
The terrain is painted. It's just the figures are not painted.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because the terrain has to be painted because it's different kinds of terrain.
Yep.
So it's annoying. I will scrounge up the money, and I'm gonna get at least a version of the new master set. That is for sure, because I love that game, and I started to get into it right at the end of its life cycle, and that was like a weird thing I started doing as I would start getting into a tabletop game right when it was dying, and I'm just like, curses. But I was able to get some stuff, and you and Darren were generous enough to gift me with some stuff because Darren
that was
extras.
Darren.
yeah, because he had extras. So he had extras, and he passed those along to me. And I will never forget that one weekend at your parents' old house. It was the first house. There's a second house now because of a fire, and we made a massive Heroescape because you can design your own board with the different kinds of terrain.
Yeah,
and we made a massive board that was the size of your living room floor, and we had like 6-8 people playing, and
it was fun. Big mega game.
Yeah, and it came down to me and our friend Henry in a matchup that was so epic it became a story in one of our Devo books.
Yep. So, but and Saturday night I ran 2 rounds of commission and a round of unmatched, and it was fun because for the first round of commission I had a full table, including 2 parents and their sons, their teenage sons, were just sitting around doing nothing. So when the unmatched started halfway through their game of commission, I roped those 2 boys into playing to get using generic tickets to come in, and I had a full game of unmatched.
There you go. That's how you do it.
Yep.
Yeah. So Jared and I we played it. What was funny is we were fighting the Mothman, and the table behind us was playing what I don't know what the game was called, but it sounded like it was basically a conspiracy theory trivia game, and
something like that.
Yeah, and they were one of the multiple choice answers was the Mothman. And I'm like, well, I just look back, it's like, well, that's funny. We're fighting the Mothman.
Yep.
And then a few minutes later, they're like, oh, by the way, the answer was the Mothman. I'm like, aha. And then Jared and I actually beat the Mothman, which surprised me a little bit because the first time I played Tales to Amaze, which was actually when you came to visit here in my apartment, we lost to the Mothman, but and we had more people. I'm like, why are we winning pretty handily with only 2 of us?
And when I played it with you and Joe, I did briefly mention we needed to deal with his minions before dealing with him, and that wasn't really how we played it. We didn't focus enough on them to get them out of the way, and that's part of the reason we lost that time.
Oh,
Um, yeah, but so that maybe you guys just did a better job getting rid of those guys.
oh no, we didn't. We just went straight for the walkman.
Oh, okay.
So I guess we played it wrong.
You probably had. Do you remember which two minions you had?
It was the tarantula and the frog.
Okay, those two aren't too bad to deal with. So yeah,
Yeah.
and the blob isn't bad, but like the Jersey Devil is terrible.
Oh yeah, that's like we're not. I remember the Jersey Devil being a nightmare. So
Yeah.
it's like we're not dealing with that.
Yep.
Anyway, we're not going to get too mired in that.
Yep.
So we finished that. Jared went to go do his weekly Bible study on Discord. And so I just hung out with you, the Klauses, so Scott and
And the
Ella.
Harbors were playing that game.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
they're friends.
friends of ours got spaces in my second commission game, and the other people who were supposed to play with them didn't show up, so I got to play with them. And Nate sat down and hung out with us as we played,
Yeah,
and that was a really good time. It
yeah,
was so fun to just enjoy playing it with my friends, with our
yeah,
friends,
yeah.
and it was great.
And then Jared and I had to run back and forth to go get his event tickets because they don't. Even if you use someone else's account to get tickets for you, you have only the person who got whose tickets those are can collect them.
Yep.
Which is a new thing. They haven't done that before. So we had to go get his event ticket for Unmatched, run back, give it to the guy. And then we went back to the house
Yep.
and turned in for
So,
the evening.
yep. And then Sunday morning, I'm gonna start day 4 off if you don't mind.
Yeah, I was about to transition us to day 4 anyway.
So, day 4 was Sunday morning. It was the worship service I coordinate. And we've been in a space the last few years in a hotel across the way. It's right across a sky bridge from the convention center.
Is the Weston?
I think so. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's a Weston. And the room last week we were at capacity.
No, you know what? No, it was the Weston.
Anyway,
Anyway.
yeah.
Sorry, got distracted.
So we this year they put us in a room in the ICC, and I was hoping, we were at capacity last year. They gave us a bigger room. It was like a third of the size.
It was the original room that it was in because when I
Yeah.
first started going to Gen Con, that was the room it was in.
Yeah, and it was in a different room back in 2010, my first time. But anyway, so we went. I was there getting set up. We packed the probably 150 people into there, and there were still people out who couldn't get in. So
We were the holy sardines, is what we were.
Yes, the holy sardines. And so we packed them in. And the message was great. I recorded the message with Nate helping a little bit with that. Manning the camera,
which allowed me to have some inside information I probably shouldn't have saw.
And so we recorded
flirtatious good morning text. That's all I'm saying.
Yes. We recorded that, and I got that up Monday morning. But so the service itself went great, but I basically spent the entire service, aside from the few times when I was on stage, out in the hallway, shaking hands and meeting with people who were not able to get in because we just didn't have the space. And so I walked one group of about 4 people through communion so that they could be led in communion and have that. Jonathan, who was on our panel Friday, was also shaking hands and meeting with people. And I do think good connections happened there. But it was frustrating. We couldn't all get in for the service. So Tom Basso does a sermon each year. He is a YouTuber known for doing wonderful game reviews or well accepted game reviews. He's very good at it.
Dice Tower?
The Dice Tower. Yeah.
Nice.
So he runs the Dice Tower. He also currently he is on the board at his church, but he was a youth pastor and a children's pastor for many years. So he does a message. He has great relationships within the gaming world, and his like from the first time I heard him preach, his skills for preaching has just gotten better and better. So uh, he does great with that. We've got a guy named Craig who normally leads worship that comes every year, and I, do the opening and closing and lead communion and prayer, and just do all of the background coordination stuff. So having all of that together, it went really well. It was just frustrating that we were in such a small room, but it went great, and people were all we had was good feedback. Even the people in the hallway, they're like, you know what? I'm glad this many people are here for it. They were frustrated they couldn't get in, but they were just really glad we had people there.
Mhm.
And as I started letting people know, hey, I'm recording the sermons. You can find it. Check, the Nerd Chapel YouTube channel later on. And they're like, okay, thank you. So we can at least get it later. And that helped them feel a little bit more seen with knowing that, okay, someone's recording this. So even if I don't get to hear it now, I can hear it then. So yeah, and that we always end it at least 10 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes before the vendor hall opens, because along with Nate, there are other people who need to get down into there who are running booths or have tables in Artist Alley or whatever. So we always end it in time, and then I have to do some of my cleanup stuff, go through some things, some of my closing responsibilities for it. And so then after I took care of those responsibilities, I joined you at your table again, and we spent the
Mhm.
day at the table.
Yep. And Sunday, in terms of sales, when I've been there before, can go one way or sometimes it's either really slow or it's really good. And again, this year it was really good. And we had a lot of devotional book sales, both Saturday and
Mhm.
Sunday, especially. We had a lot of devotional sales,
Yeah.
and so those were going really well. And while we're talking about that, I do want to mention that this is where we had the really interesting interaction. So we had a gentleman come over who was a friend of another one of my author friends. He
Mhm.
actually did a video reading of a chapter of my kaiju book, Destroyer. And, which I did not ask him to do. He just did it because he wanted to. And he came over to chat with us. And I thought he was going to I thought he was going to come over there and buy a book or something. But he ended up buying a book, but I'll explain why in a moment. So he came over and he said, "Yeah," he said, "I know you guys are Christians. I need some prayer." And he
Mhm.
said that his wife of 35 years was leaving him. She had, she had to have some. I believe she had treatment. I believe it was. What was it? Was it for cancer? I think it was for cancer or
I
something.
don't think it was that, but it's some fairly serious treatment.
Yeah, she had some serious treatment. I think it was hormone therapy or something, like something that just changed, kind of just altered her personality,
Mhm.
and she became very uncommunicative, and basically, from what I could gather, fell out of love with him, and he didn't know what else to do because she just was completely disinterested in their marriage anymore. So he felt like there's nothing else I can do. So he filed for divorce, and it was really taking a toll on him. And I think you were actually talking to somebody or whatnot. And I was just, because I walked out in front of the table, which was a
Mhm.
little bit of a habit I was doing this weekend. If people came over and they were looking at the books, I would walk out around the table and
Which is good,
actually,
I think.
interact with them.
Yeah, I think that was good
Yeah.
that you do that.
But so I went out there and I was talking with him, and he brought that up, and I just looked at you and said, "Eric, this man needs prayer." And then,
Yep,
and
and I
then
stepped up.
yeah, we stepped up and we prayed for him right there in the middle. Well, you did it, but we both laid hands on him. So we're
Mhm.
praying for him right there in the middle of the aisle, which is, well, not the middle, but it was at the end of an aisle, which is kind of prime real estate because people out on the edges, you'll be one of the first people that they see. So we stood there and we did that for him. And I had one copy of book 2 of our devotional series myself. That was like the one, like, cause we sold your copies. We
Mhm.
sold the Devo books were from your inventory, so you kept all the money from the Devo sales. And I had one copy from my inventory of book 2 left over, and I just tried to say, "Hey, I think you need this." So I just tried to give it to him. The man refused to not pay for it.
Yeah. We were trying to give it to him for free, and he just wouldn't.
He would not do it.
Yeah.
He would not do it. And I'm like, "Okay, I won't argue with it. If you're going to give me money for this, that's fine, but you can have it for nothing."
Hmm.
But he refused to do it. So now he did buy 2 books from me later because I had a couple of books left over from my inventory. Like, I don't want to take
Yeah.
these home with me.
Yep.
You can have them for 50% off. And he bought both of them from me for
Yep.
50% off. But, you know, so like, which is funny, I tried to give him something for free and he wouldn't do it. And then I, cut the price in half and he buys them, but whatever. And, so I think for me personally, I think that was the most meaningful interaction that we had the entire weekend.
Yeah. Yep. It was.
Yeah.
So.
And then of our friends, our friends Michelle and Darren came over again to check on us, and we told them about what was going on and things like that. And
Darren brought over someone who was trying to connect with the Christian Gamers Guild.
Mm-hmm.
And she's starting a con up in
Yes.
Wisconsin. And so we talked a little bit about that, and so that may be a possibility next year.
It might be. It sounds a bit similar to that Nerd Ministry Summit, which we probably should have done a live stream about that too. That Nerd Ministry Summit that we went to in Texas, it's being held again this year in
Colorado.
In Colorado, but we are not going this year because we're disappointed with how it's being run. I ran into Bubba in the Mets room of all places, I think on Saturday night, and we talked a little bit.
Yeah, I might still go this year, but I don't think I'm going to make it. So
yeah. But anyway, but that was a really interesting thing, and I'm looking forward to seeing, because she was very passionate about getting this off the ground and making this, she has goals in mind, with what she wants to do with this. And I think it'll be really interesting to see what she can do with that.
Yep. So, yeah, so we had a couple of good interactions that day.
Yeah.
And then we had closing down and packing up.
There's one other thing I was going to bring up, because Darren is way, 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 way too nice to me.
Oh, no.
They're right over here, so I'm trying to see if I can reach over and
grab them. Yes,
but, okay. But unfortunately, it's just a little too far, and it'd be a little too awkward to try to grab it unless I just wanted to disappear from the camera for a minute. But
you can disappear. They can look at me. I can
disappear. Okay.
You can disappear.
Fine. I'll be back in a minute.
Everybody. He'll be back. So, it was a good con. I had some great interactions with people. And so, like I said, the Christianity and gaming panel went well. We had a question about creating Christian games, if that was a good route for sharing the gospel. And one of the comments was, it really depends on how well you design it, because there have been some really bad Christian games, and a lot of people who aren't Christians aren't really looking to get Christian games. So we talked about the value of non-Christian games as community builders and connection points for discipleship and for evangelism. And that's just one of the questions at the Christianity and Gaming panel. But Nate, you have something to show us.
Yeah, well, first off, I will show this up. This is the Unmatched set that I bought for myself, which this might be one of... Maybe, I don't know. Actually, I don't know how many people would know this, but this is one of the most uniquely me, sets that Unmatched has ever done. And that's including all the Marvel sets, I might add. But this is all Shakespeare themed.
Yes.
I've played this before. Shakespeare himself is a playable character. Yes, you can fight people as Shakespeare. And Shakespeare's mechanics are amazing. You can actually do iambic pentameter. You lay different, after you use a card, you lay it down, and you have to get to 10 syllables. And if you get 10 syllables, you don't go over, you get exactly 10, you get a bonus. Each of the cards will have an extra bonus that you can do. So, like I said, one of the most unique, and you also have to rattle off what you actually made with all the different names of the cards. So it ends up being this Shakespearean word salad, but you have to recite it in order to make the mechanic activate, which, so I kind of love it. But
yeah, and Diana, your comment that your DM was you doing youth outreach with D&D. Yeah, that's great. I connected with a youth center in Michigan that has been doing Gamer Chapel, spun off of Nerd Chapel, and they are using Dungeons and Dragons for their relationship building with the kids, as well as some other things. They get some other games to the table as well, and they do some cooking lessons with the kids, and so they do a variety of things. Some hiking trip. They're doing a hiking trip this week. But yeah, that is one of the routes that Gamer Chapel uses, is just playing D&D, and it's a great way to build community.
Don't tell that to the satanic panickers. But anyway, so I mentioned it to our friend Darren that, what were some other things I was potentially thinking about buying. Some more Unmatched was one thing. Another game that I really enjoy, which I think I'm going to have to start doing some live streams with this game for my podcast, The Monster Island Foam Vault, for obvious reasons, which is the King of Tokyo, which has been doing some sequels / expansions the last couple of years. It's from Yellow Games, spinoffs. And I went over to where those were being sold, and I saw one of the, I guess you could say it's a new sequel, and there was a prequel / expansion that I found there. And I was like, might have to get one of those, maybe, but I ended up going for Unmatched. Well, then Darren comes over and he's like, I'm sorry I missed your birthday. And then
he got you both.
I got both. So it's King of Monster Island, which is a co-op game, and this funny little expansion that's touted as a prequel called King of Tokyo Origins. And I just looked at Darren and I said, sir, I know how much this cost. You are way too nice to me. I won't say how much they cost, but it was a pretty penny. I did not ask him to do it. I'm still shocked that he did it. Thank you once again, Darren, for doing that. It's just, Darren is like that. He is. He saves up a bunch of money, buys things that he buys, the things he really loves. Sometimes he buys extra just so he could give it away to people. It's wild. It's wild. And then if you want to see the rest of my quote unquote haul, I was surprised to find out through Twitter, Ultraman Connection, because I know Jeff Gomez, who runs Ultraman Connection, that Ultraman had a presence at Gen Con. They had a booth set up where they were demoing a new card game that's being released in North America in October. And I went over there, and just for following a QR code and liking them on Facebook, I was able, after everything had shut down, I was able to grab a demo deck from them, a free demo deck that came, with a couple of Gen Con promo cards from Ultraman Rising. So I felt pretty
Is that
cool.
Universus?
No, this is its own game. There was Universus was there, and they had Godzilla stuff. That was wild. It was like, why? This was the greatest presence for both, certainly for Ultraman. I had never seen Ultraman at Gen Con before, and this was the strongest presence I've seen Godzilla have at Gen Con ever, which was just wild. Which means that Ultraman was at 3 high-profile conventions all within 1 month, because they had people from Ultraman Connection, among other things, at G-Fest, which I saw Jeff. Jeff himself was there, so I got to meet him in person finally. I've interviewed him a couple of times on the podcast. And then they were at the biggest one is they had people there for San Diego Comic-Con.
Which was a week before Gen Con, which was crazy.
Was a week before Gen Con, and they made a bunch of big announcements over there.
Yep.
And they actually had people in the suits and everything who were there,
Mm-hmm.
interacting with the fans. And then they had these guys
At Gen Con.
demoing the game at Gen Con. So they had their own booth there. That was all it was. It's just they were there demoing the game.
Yep.
But so they weren't selling anything. They were just demoing this thing. Like they went to the trouble of getting a booth there, and it's not cheap to vend it
No, it's not.
at Gen Con. So there was very much an investment in what they think they're going to get later. So I was just overjoyed to see that
Mhm.
there. I wish I had been there when, before they had tore everything down and they were still there, because I could have sat there. It's like, let me show you how much of an Ultraman nerd I am. And I would just sit there and I would point at every single Ultraman on the banner and just identify all of them because I did that when they weren't there. I was like, can I actually identify all of them? Yes, I can.
Yep.
So I felt pretty cool. So anyway, we tore down after that and stuffed everything back into the car. And then we went to, speaking of Darren, we went over to his hotel because he has a game that if I can find it and I can scrounge up $500, I'm buying everything for it because it's one of my favorite video game franchises, Street Fighter.
Yep.
Street Fighter, the miniature game. And I don't care what Tom Vassell says. It is an amazing game with amazing figures. Tom, you may have killed this.
Did I send you my photo of that?
It's just, no, I don't think you did. Let me check my photo gallery, see if I have, because I took pictures. One thing that you did, because you were generous on Sunday as well. On Thursday, we had this little menu passed out to us from one of the food trucks saying like, hey, if you're a vendor and you're thirsty, use this QR code, order drinks from us. And you did that. So we got to try some, basically homemade sodas, which was actually really fun.
Yeah. And I just sent you an email with those pictures.
Wait, no, I think I found mine. Wait,
okay.
That's the wrong one. Click the correct picture. Is this the... Yeah, that one, that was kind of the end of the game. Let me see. What's this one? I have a couple of them. Oh yeah, this is like the ending right here.
Yes, I know what one you're doing.
Yeah, so let me I'll show off the one here. That's the full, that's more of the full board. But so this is a kind of a large miniatures game with a board using Street Fighter characters. And we did a 2v2. It was my brother Jared and I versus you and Darren.
Yep.
I had Honda. Jared had Cody. I'm sorry if none of these Street Fighter characters mean anything to you. You ran Chun-Li.
Yep.
And just for fun, Darren grabbed Makoto. And what was hilarious, because this actually is kind of lore accurate to the games as well, he thought Makoto was a boy when he was talking, when he was kind of laying out the rules for Jared. And I looked like, hey, Darren, Makoto's a girl. He's like, what? It's like, yeah, Makoto's a girl. And he was a little surprised. But that game was nuts. Like it was just this, just this insane game of attrition.
And your brother was doing really well at it.
And Jared was doing crazy good. Like the first time he got attacked, he counterattacked both times.
Yep.
And he had never played the game before. So this is,
I felt
this
that.
is it right
yep.
here. Yeah, this is it right here.
Yeah.
And so it ended up being, I think I went out first, but I did a hefty amount of damage to Darren's Makoto.
Yeah.
So I was worried that this was not going to end well. But then Jared started doing really well against you, as with your Chun-Li.
And I had a couple of good licks, but he,
because it was to the point where he was getting dangerously low on health. And then I looked at Jared and was like, okay, you do this right, you could finish both of them off in one turn, which is what he ended up doing. He was able to, I think,
discombobulate me.
Discombobulated you, took out Darren because he didn't have much health left, and then finished you off. and
Yep.
we won, and I couldn't believe it. We were all really shocked that that was how the game went, because I thought he was going to lose. I thought,
Yeah.
like, as I'm like, if I'm not there to help him, he may
It
not be
was.
able to do it with having not played the game before and stuff like that. And then because we had to show we had to get a picture of basically how, the end of all of this madness. We took
Mm-hmm.
this little reenactment picture.
Yep.
you know, where
Yep.
everybody else got taken out, and then last man standing for the team was Cody. So
Yep.
apparently, I need to play this game more often with Jared, because he was crazy lucky that game.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, that was good, and we all had fun.
Yeah. So
And
we did that, and then we went over to B-dubs, because
yep.
Jared really wanted to get B-dubs last year, but we ended up not doing it because we wanted to do a local flavor thing. But we decided to be nice to Jared and let him pick the restaurant this year. So we went and got B-dubs for dinner, hung out
Yeah.
for a bit, went back to his hotel,
Parted
and
ways.
then basically parted ways. Took you back to the house,
Mm-hmm.
and then we spent an hour or two packing up our car, getting everything out of the house, taking care of, making sure the house got paid for, because there was a little bit of confusion with
Yep.
that. Again, that would, potentially would have put a damper on things. And then we also sat down and just kind of did a final tally on our sales and the number of books. And we ended up having to settle on a range because we got a little bit confused about how many how many that was. But it was a good year
Yes. It
for
was a very
book
good year.
sales. Yeah, I'm trying to remember if it was the best year overall or if it was a very close second. I think it might have been the best overall.
It was in the top two in the very least.
Yeah,
So
definitely in the top 2, because we did very well, and which is actually has me really excited for next year, because I will probably have several new titles to sell next
yeah.
year.
Yep.
So, including potentially a comic book. So that will be interesting, because I did have
Yes.
some people ask me if I had comic books, because some of the covers look like comic book covers, and I had to tell them no. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that with a comic book I can reach a little bit different of a crowd next
Yep.
year.
So
Yeah, it was a surprisingly good Gen Con this
Yep.
year, but we do have an epilogue to this whole thing, because Jared and I left and we got home by like almost midnight, and then unpacked and just went to bed, you know, but we do have, like I said, a little bit of an epilogue. I'm calling this one Day Plus One. Because you stayed one more night at the house.
Yeah. And I mean, the next morning I got up, I had breakfast, which wasn't much. I basically had dry cereal and Gatorade for breakfast. Uh,
Did you put the Gatorade in the cereal?
no, I did not. That's right, it was dry. Uh, but I got the video of the sermon posted to YouTube and did my cleanup. And my brother picked me up, and we stopped at a couple of coffee shops that he wanted to check out in Indy that he had never been to, and walked around. And was able to walk to both of them from parking at one place. And then we got on our way and left. So, not much of an epilogue. Just
Yeah,
it's
but you
not
got
like
to stay one more night at that
yeah,
courthouse.
yep, I did. So, but yeah, that was our Gen Con.
That was our Gen Con. Yeah, it was a good time. I do highly recommend, if if especially if you live in the state of Indiana, or even in any of the neighboring states. This is if you only go to one convention in the year, and you are a big fan of tabletop gaming, definitely come to this one. You actually said you had some interactions with a guy who's at the actual largest gaming convention in the world, which is over in Germany, and he
Mhm.
says, nope, Gen Con's better.
Yeah. Well, in Germany, it's just a different approach. It's basically a big vendor hall, and you do get demo a lot of games that aren't out yet, and they release a lot of games. They also have a big award show for board games. in board game products, but it's a different beast.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. So I do highly recommend it. And if you do come, hit us up in the vendor hall. Come buy
yeah,
some books. Hang out with us for a little
come to the
bit.
Christian worship service or the
Yeah.
Christianity and gaming panel.
Yeah. I was going to say there's plenty of cool stuff to be there. And I do think, I mean, I don't want to get too much into it, but I do think we need to have a stronger Christian presence at Gen Con. I think it would behoove the convention to do that. I'm glad that they are still allowing the Christian Gamers Guild and all that to be there, have a presence, but we need to let them know that, hey, we need that bigger room next year because,
Well, and Tom has the relationships; he'll take care of that. So I'm
yeah,
not worried about it.
right, right. So, I think it was a good year. I
Yep.
don't know. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it was one of the best years I've had in terms of book sales, but I don't know if I would say it's my favorite Gen Con ever.
Right.
But
Yeah. There's a
yeah,
difference between having good sales and just having a really fun year.
yeah,
Like, but I think it went well. I feel like it was a successful year,
mhm,
and for me, it was wonderful just to have Scott and Ellen there with us because they live
yeah,
over in a different country, and to be able to have friends there at the convention with us was really good.
right, right. Next year,
So
I may have to try hosting some events in the evening or whatever. I
possibly.
don't know. I don't know. Well, I'll figure something out. But all right, Eric. This is more of a thing on the Film Vault, but do some shameless self promotion
All right.
before we sign off here, and then I'll do the
So
same, and we'll be done for the evening.
as you can see, I'm the Nerd Chapel guy. You can find Nerd Chapel on Instagram, on Facebook. You can check out our website, www.nerdchapel.com. I am also on Patreon. So if you're like, hey, I want to get an idea what it might be like to support you, go to patreon.com/nerdchapel. And yeah, we Nate and I co-wrote 3 devotionals together. I'm almost done. I'm almost done with the first draft of my first solo book, which is a Christian reflection inspired by a sci-fi show called Stargate SG-1. So hopefully in the future you'll be able to find that online or at a con if I'm there tabling. So check all of these options out. Nerdchapel.com, nerd_chapel on Instagram, nerdchapel on Facebook, and search Nerd Chapel here on YouTube and find my YouTube channel and give me a follow and check some of my videos there. Again, the sermon from this year's Gen Con is up there with Tom Vasso preaching about forgiveness. And I got quite a few other videos on there as well. So,
All righty. Well, and then obviously check out my author website, nathanjsmarchand.com, so that you can keep up with all the stuff that I'm doing in terms of writing. I will probably be posting some of these videos on there to since they're recaps of the convention and all of that. And also check out my podcast, the Monster Island Phone Vault, which you can hear on all the different
Katie,
podcatchers. Yep, and check out
Katie left
Monster
a
Island.
comment.
Yep. Oh, your girlfriend. There we
Yes,
go. Yeah. Thanks,
yes.
Kate. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, and then so check out the podcast website there. I also just started a new podcast called Henshin Power V3, which you can hear on various places. Its website is on Podbean, and just to keep throwing this out there, I'm one of the cast members for the various fan produced audio dramas for Scyther Inc. Productions. Most notably, I play Rito on the Power Rangers show, and to my surprise, I am apparently a remarkably good Deadpool on the X-Men show because people keep asking me to be Deadpool on their productions. It's kind of wacky. I was just on someone else's podcast actually recently as Deadpool. I never would have thought. And soon I will be making my debut as Johnny Storm, baby, on the Avengers audio drama that was spun off from the
Aha.
X-Men show. So, lots of cool stuff coming up around there. And I'm also working on
Hi,
a one
Katie.
shot. Yeah. Yes. Hi. And I'm also working on a one shot for the Forsyther for their Power Ranger show, which should hopefully be out in the next couple of months. So that's all the important things I need to let you know about. All right. Like I said, thank you all for joining and for leaving comments. And to everybody watching us on the VOD, thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.